All right, y'all see the title, so I'm gonna just get right into it. So, time and time and time again, no matter how many times the same thing keeps going on and on, the history keeps repeating itself. People want to keep telling us how we should respond to our oppression, right? Going all the way back, take all the way back to slavery times with slave rebellions and all this type of stuff that was considered illegal and yada yada yada. Then you move to the the independent war, which Crispus Attucks, the first person to take a bullet for this country, which was a black man, because we've been in every single war in this country, black men in particular, and the only reason that black women really, for the most part, haven't been in every single war is because of sexism. It's not because they didn't want to. So I just want to put that out there. But either way, Crispus Attucks took the first bullet for this country. We've always fought for y'all, but y'all have never fought for us. But every time we want to fight back against y'all, when I say y'all know who I'm talking about. So anyway, every time we want to fight back, all of a sudden y'all want to tell us how it's wrong and that's not the right way. But for some reason, conveniently, y'all can never say, oh, here's the right way. It's always, no, not like that. Don't do that. No, that's not right. So, okay, try your way after the Civil War, or excuse me, after the War on Independence, everything like this, 1776. White America gets its independence from white Britain or England or whatever like this. Black folks still enslaved. Now we're like, well, wait a minute. We did what y'all wanted. We fought y'all's war. We took the first bullet for you, but y'all still beating us down when we're still enslaved, but we did what y'all wanted to do. Well, dang, okay, we're going to start rebelling and having these slave rebellions like Nat Turner and them, everything like this, right? But that was wrong according to white America. So you move to the Civil War, which obviously after the Civil War, that ended chattel slavery. Now, if you look up the 13th Amendment, technically slavery still exists, but as far as that form of slavery was eradicated afterwards, we never got our reparations after that, even though we fought in the Civil War. And if it wasn't for black people in the South, there's a good chance the South probably wouldn't have won, right? And the only reason that the North really was beefing with the South, aka white on white crime, is because of money. It had nothing to do with morals. It had nothing to do with protecting black men, women, and children's lives. It had all to do with the fact that most of the factories were up north, whereas slave labor, aka free labor, was still down south. So the South was killing the North economically. So Lincoln was like, well, shit, we got to do something, right? So slavery ended. Lincoln, speaking of him, he wanted black Americans to be kicked out to Brazil, which is the most heavily populated country as far as black people in this hemisphere. Now, Nigeria, if I'm not mistaken, is the most populated black country in the world, but Brazil is the most black populated country in this hemisphere, right? He wanted us to go there. He wanted to get rid of us. He didn't want us in this country after the Civil War. So don't tell me that was about, black people and, white folks all of a sudden realized that they were wrong and they wanted to care. No, we freed ourselves in the Civil War by fighting against our oppressors. So boom. Fast forward after that, you go to Black Wall Street, everything like this. We start to elevate ourselves essentially a generation after slavery, after going through centuries of being illiterate due to oppression, due to it being illegal for black men, women, and children to be able to read. Somehow, we started to outpace white society economically in our own communities when we were left alone. We started to outpace the white American society. So what happened? The first ever terrorist attack on this country, in this soil, was done by the American government against black Americans. It was an airstrike. They took airplanes and threw dynamite down, and blew up Tulsa, Oklahoma, as well as countless other cities in America where black people were starting to thrive on their own independently, economically, and destroyed all of that, never got compensated, nothing. Told us to pray it away and to be nonviolent. We tried that. That didn't work. Boom. All of a sudden we get the KKK coming in, killing us. We get Jim Crow getting beat down, being segregated, being funneled into these areas where we were redlined, into areas that were economically messed up, which then slowly but surely started to create, ghettos later on in American history. But segregation obviously led into the civil rights movement, right? So we protested that as far as segregation and wanting to vote and not being beat down by police, everything like this back in segregation era, right? They locked up Martin Luther King for marching. They murdered him. They murdered Malcolm X, everybody like this, essentially telling us that the way that we were responding to racial oppression wasn't right because they killed off our leaders that were marching, right? So you fast forward after that, you get into the crack epidemic when the government put crack and guns into black communities. We didn't make that stuff. That stuff was funneled into our communities to get us strung out on drugs, get us shooting each other, all of these things. They took away our resources, took away our jobs, took away our livelihood. What do you think a group of people are going to do, any race of people are going to do if they can't eat and they're stressed out, they're trying to cope? Think about right now, think about you watching this right now. When you get stressed out sometimes, you might want to have a couple drinks or whatever like this. So maybe instead of a beer or whatever you drink, and everything that's around you is drugs. So you're doing that because you're stressed out, you're depressed, all these things, but now you're strung out on drugs, you're not in your right state of mind, so you can't organize, everything like this, but you try anyway, and then you create the Black Panthers, which was a direct response to our leaders being killed in the civil rights movement. But they say that wasn't right because black folks had guns in California, which at the time, it was fine for people to bear arms, but then they try to change the rules around which black men and women started bearing their arms, basically telling us that wasn't the right way to respond to oppression by defending ourselves. Okay, so then we move into the 90s. All of a sudden we get mass incarceration, which was a direct, reflection of the crack epidemic, which started in the 80s. So everybody in the 80s that got strung out on drugs and was selling it, all these things, started to get locked up in mass numbers instead of the government helping us by giving us therapy or whatever to get us to not be so addicted. The same thing that they try to do now with white folks that are on these opioids, and they try to help y'all out. They didn't do that for us. That's in the 90s. So you move into the 2000s, the FBI themselves, the same people, the same organization that killed Martin Luther King, said themselves that white supremacists were infiltrating the police force in the 2000s, 2000, 2009, that decade. So you move to the next decade. What did we see last decade? The Black Lives Matter movement popped up. We've seen all of these black folks, black men and women and children getting slaughtered out here. Weird, right? So now we want to respond to that. And we're looking back in our history thinking, well, dang, they told us to pray it away. They told us to sing it away. They told us to not be violent and all these things. And clearly that didn't work, or else we would not be dealing with these same things. So after a while, we're like, you know what? None of these other things work. So let's go ahead and turn up and get more violent and start tearing stuff up and start fighting back. Because we're at our last resort. We don't want to do this. Black people in our natural right state of minds are, in my opinion, the most peaceful people on the planet. If you don't believe me, tell me at what point in black history, pre-America, did black people go around the world committing genocide and slavery? And don't tell me it's because black people didn't have the technology to travel. We've been traveling around the world before anybody was. In fact, the Moors, aka black people in Africa, traveled into Europe and saved y'all asses from dying off during the Black Plague. The reason why the Renaissance era started in Europe, which we got no credit for, is because black men and women introduced y'all to soap and shampoo black women, and introduce y'all to bathing. Black men and the women introduce y'all to agriculture, and all these things will help y'all to cultivate y'all's culture today. And how did y'all repay us? By enslaving us in the United States. Not only that, other groups of people, the Middle Easterns, enslaved black people in Africa, in East Africa. So we went through all of these things, so on and so forth. Anyway, jumping back to now, we've seen all of this stuff pan out over the last whatever many hundreds of years, to the point where we're like, you know what? We're done doing it the way that you say we're supposed to do it, because clearly y'all aren't hearing us. And as MLK Jr. said, that man that y'all love so much, to quote, he said that riots are the voices or the language of the unheard. The reason why you see us tearing stuff up and burning things down, which, yeah, you could say that it's wrong, it's problematic, but so is racism, which is the reason why we're doing it, right? There's no such thing as the right way. We are responding to us continuously being slaughtered out here, physically, mentally, and economically. But every time we try to do for self, economically, mentally, and physically, y'all want to get mad and say that we're racist for wanting to do for ourselves, when y'all the same ones that didn't even want us here after slavery, right? So what you're seeing now is the byproduct of 400 plus years, if you want to really, but as far as America, a good 400 plus years of the same BS over and over again, from black men being hung from trees, and white men chopping off our genitalia and putting it in jars as a trophy, to fast forward to what just happened recently with George Floyd and that demon that choked him to death. And from what I heard, 'cause I didn't watch the video, I just read the article, and I've talked to people about it. They said that the person that was filming it was basically like, "Yo, man, looks like you're kind of getting off to this." And based on the photos that I seen, that man's face, you could tell he was getting off to that, because he had some kind of superiority complex. You look at that man's track record; he's been out here killing Native Americans and other black folks, and so on and so forth. You find out that the cop, as well as George, used to work together. And according to folks that used to work with the both of them, a lot of people say that cop was an asshole, excuse my language, but he was a bad man. Whereas with George, everybody had nothing but good things to say about this man. Now all of a sudden, that same cop kills him and is being charged with a third degree murder and not first degree. Are you serious? And you wonder why we're responding this way? This is not us in our natural state. But this is what happens when unnatural things keep happening to us over and over again. Eventually, we are going to hit a breaking point, especially in the middle of a pandemic, which is hilarious because it looks like everybody done forgot that there's this deadly virus out here. I guess the real deadly virus is still racism, huh? I guess that's the number one virus still in this country and the world against black folks and people in general, is racism and all these other social forms of bigotry, sexism, homophobia, all of these things, right? So yeah, of course we might turn up and tear things down. Is it right? No, but neither is black men, women, and children out here getting slaughtered for just being black and existing. But y'all want to tell us what the right way is to protest? No, whatever y'all say is the right way clearly is not. Because if it was, we would have already had racial liberation and equality. It would have already been done, right? Why hasn't that happened? Because clearly y'all's way doesn't work. So we're going to try something else. Keyword try. We're trying stuff out. If you want to be upset by all this collateral damage, be upset with the reason why. Okay? There's no right way to protest and to respond to demonic people. Okay? Once again, we are the most peaceful people on the planet when we are left alone. The fact that we have not gone around the world and wiped out in the entire race of people that are a part of the race of people that have oppressed us. I'm not saying everybody that is of that race is racist, but I'm saying that group, that racial group, is a racist race. of people, right? The fact that we have not gone around the world and wiped y'all out, that alone should let y'all know that in our nature and in our soul, we are peaceful people. We are not the minorities of Earth. Y'all are. We are actually one of the majorities, us and the Asian community, excuse me, the Asian community. We're the majority of this Earth, and we ain't going around here committing genocide against the Aboriginal people, the black Aboriginals in Australia. We're not going around colonizing a whole continent. We're not going around creating doing some kind of genocide to natives over here and everything else. We're not doing that. It's not that we're, inferior to the point where we're not capable of doing it. We could have been did that. That we don't, for what? No, we want to live in peace and harmony. We are the original people of this earth. We don't want this to happen. But if you keep messing with somebody, you keep backing them into a corner, eventually they're going to fight back. What do you expect? How can you get mad at the people that are being beaten down for sticking up for themselves? Shouldn't you respect that? Like I said before, people will celebrate the 4th of July every year, which is a holiday that is about a war, which is about violence, which is about taking power and becoming independent over your oppressors. Y'all got a problem with it when it's white on white crime, but when it's black people fighting against our oppressors, all of a sudden you want to tell us how we should respond to y'all's oppression, as if y'all still own us, as if y'all are still our slave owners and we gotta listen to y'all. Like, do you understand? If you consider yourself a so-called ally, whatever words you want to use. When I say y'all, I'm not just talking about white folks, even though clearly that's particularly what I was talking about, but any non-black people, if you consider yourself a friend of black people, don't tell us how we should feel and respond to this situation. Ask how you can help or shut up. Period. All right? I'm out.